Sitting down with Yitzi Bude from Charity Extra was really eye-opening. Sometimes we think that people just make it to wherever they are without realizing that behind the success that we see today is actually a journey, sometimes a very hard journey. Many small pieces of a complicated puzzle slowly, painstakingly falling into place until the picture starts to take shape. Charity Extra collectively is en route to reaching £1 billion raised for charities across the world. Here is Yitzi Bude's story of how he pushed through a challenging financial landscape until his picture began to take shape. With thanks to our corporate sponsor Maxim Cohen from the UK Finance Group for his continuous support of this podcast. Thank you for listening. Enjoy this week's episode. I feel like we live in a very short patches of time. Businesses succeed, we tend to think of them as they're always a success story. If businesses aren't succeeding, we tend to think of them as never succeeding. We typically don't really see the full picture of what goes on. And if we tap into your story, surely that wasn't where it all started. Like Charity Extra seems to have blown into existence, but there's definitely a longer timeline that's behind what we see. And I'm curious to know where Yitzi Bude was before charity fundraising moved online.
So I came back fresh from what we call the conveyor belt, where I left school, went to yeshiva, got married, went to Israel for 2 years, and then came back. Got married when I was 22. I came back when I was 24. I never wanted any qualifications. I was never the studious type. I was never academic. So it was never for me. I always knew I wanted to do something in business. I just didn't know what. My father, all of a sudden, was a lawyer, so I couldn't go into his business like some people do. I came back with absolutely nothing. And I just thought, I've got to start somewhere, and then I'm going to build up from there.
Were you nervous?
No, I don't think I was nervous. I'm not the nervous type, which is good. I came back and was looking around for jobs. It was interesting though. Before I came back, like during holiday time and when I came just to visit, a few people asked me what I plan to do. And I said, I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. And quite a few people said, yeah, speak to me. I've got lots of ideas. We'll help start you off. There's so much we can help and do. Of course, when I came back, none of these things panned out. All those people didn't really have anything. They probably meant well when they said it, but when it actually came to it, there was nothing they were able to offer. My brother-in-law at the time was working in a quite big phone company, and he offered me a job, which I gladly took, and I do really appreciate it. At the time, it was right at the bottom rung of the ladder. It was very low paid. It was full-time. But not that my brother-in-law didn't want to pay me. It was just he got me a job in the firm, or whatever the firm was offering to pay me, and that was my opportunity just to do something. Just to start somewhere, just to begin my work journey. I always tell people that at the beginning was very tough, pretty much full time. I think at the time I was offered £1,000 to £1,500 a month. My rent was similar level to that. A bit of benefits to pull through, but it was very, very, very tough times. I was there for about a year and a half, and I gave it my all. I did my best, but there was no real progression for me there. While working there, I was looking for something else to do. I always knew growing up, I always enjoyed being a salesperson. I always enjoyed trying to negotiate. I always enjoyed trying to buy and sell. I was always looking online for more opportunities, and I used to come across closeouts. I used to buy some closeouts and sell on Amazon. This was quite a long time ago, before it became what it is now, where a lot of people are doing as businesses. There were almost no one doing it as a business in those days. And I would find a closeout, and I would buy some stock, and then I would sell it for a little bit of profit. And I was doing that on the side and sort of building up a knowledge base and experience in buying and selling online. But after davening once, a really good friend of mine said that he had some money behind him and he was looking to go into closeouts as well. And I had built up some experience of where to buy closeouts from, where to buy X stock from, and sell it online. And so I then left working for my brother-in-law, and I went completely on my own working with him. We found a warehouse, we bought a lot of stock, we started selling online, and that was also a very, very difficult journey because then I had absolutely no income at all.
You weren't taking anything out of the business?
And no, there was nothing to take out of the business. The beginning of a business, there's almost nothing to take out, especially a business with products. When you're buying and selling,
constantly tying up that capital.
It is, because if you buy something for 100 and you sell it for 150, you don't want to buy something again for 100 and keep it at 50, because then you stay the same level. You want to buy something for 150 and turn it to 250 and then 250 to 500, and you take that 500. So you're the whole time reinvesting in that initial capital, right at the beginning especially. That was a very, very tough time for quite a long period. And I was with him for about 2 years. There were times when it built up, and then there was big problem with closeouts really was that you have no idea what's going to come. So you can have a good few months where you get great stock, and then there's just nothing for a few months. And there was a time when, I was just sitting in the warehouse. There wasn't that much to do. And another friend of mine, I can't remember why, was in the area, was looking at the warehouse, and he mentioned to me that his father-in-law manufactures baby products and children's products in China, and he sells them in South America. So I said to him, that sounds like an opportunity. I know nothing about China, but I do know about buying and selling. Closeouts was awful because, like I said, I have no idea what's going to come next. But having your own line of products, manufacturing and bringing them over, just a constant stream. These are the product lines. This is what we're coming in. It's not, I've got no idea what's coming. So his father was very, very helpful. He sent his catalog. He sent us the contacts. We went to China. We met the factories. We negotiated what products we wanted. We brought them over, we branded them ourselves, then we started to sell them. Again, Amazon, eBay. Business was quite good. It was really building up. I worked very hard selling. So besides Amazon and eBay, I also was able to get into major retailers. We were selling to Asda at the time, Toys R Us and Tesco and Mothercare, and a lot of these places have gone bankrupt, but at the time we were selling to nearly all the major retailers.
It's pretty major. I mean, breaking through the red tape into the high street was quite an accomplishment.
Yeah. It took a good few years, but it was we were turning over a decent sum. We were making some money, so times then had improved significantly. And then business was getting very complicated. So we were designing, we were manufacturing, we were importing, we were exporting, we were wholesaling, and we were retailing. Somebody approached us and said, "Do you need custom software being built? There's this great product, this great team, and they build custom software. Can I introduce you?" So we got introduced. We met each other and this technology team, and it didn't pan out. We didn't end up using them, but I had built up a relationship with this person who heads up this team building technology to enable the business to go smoother. We used to have our own warehouse where we did everything ourselves, and then we decided to move to a third-party warehouse where they deal with all the stock, we just dealing with the buying and the selling, and they deal with everyone else. So I moved into a building, and the building that I moved into with the offices was actually next door this person who was running their technology.
Right.
So we were next door each other.
Even though you hadn't gone ahead with him.
Even though we hadn't gone ahead, we were just in the same building. He had his office, and we had our office, and we were literally neighbors, literally next door each other. Crowdfunding was just starting. It was 2019. Crowdfunding was just starting, and I was involved with several campaigns who were using platforms from, generally the one was from Israel, one's from America, but there were no local platforms, and these other platforms, they were charging quite a lot. And I thought at the time, being the type of person I am, after a campaign that I was personally involved with, the next morning I went to the office and I bumped into this guy and I said, "Do you think that you can build this website?" And he said, "Yes, I can." And I said, "You build it and I'll run it." And we thought, you know what? It'll be a great side project for both of us. This was in the beginning of 2019. It took 3-4 months to build it. It did require significant investment. I remember the product got built, and then I remember I had to try and convince charities to use it for the first time.
It was still pretty new in the UK at the time.
It was. There weren't that many campaigns, and I had to convince people. And I remember I still remember my first meeting. The guy thought it was completely crazy. He said he spent months, he spent money. It's never going to take off. It's a complete waste of time. It's a fad. You're in it now and it's just going to disappear. And there was a lot of negativity. But I remember in July 2019, Menorah High, so local girls' school, they decided to give me a chance. They were going to do a campaign. And I still have love, of course, to the people behind it. And it was a great campaign. And then we followed that on. The next campaign was a while later, was a mikveh campaign a couple of months later, and then was October time, November time, we were just doing a couple more campaigns. I was still running my business with the importing, that was still going strong, and I was juggling all of that. But we weren't doing many campaigns. And then 2020, February, COVID hit. And then during COVID, something very interesting started to happen where a lot of charities were forced to do online fundraising. So I started to get quite busy with that, like really, really busy. And at the same time, the company that I was with the manufacturing, was going quieter. That was going down while the other business was going up. And I moved onto Charity Extra full time.
We'll get back into the details, but I want to just tap into what you were saying before when you were first initially getting started with the other different ventures. Were there any serious low points whilst trying to get yourself off the ground? Because I know a lot of people who listen to this are people perhaps in that space where they're trying to get a grip on that journey and trying to get traction. What did you go through in that experience?
There were a lot of low points. There were years where I really struggled financially for me and my family. I had no idea if my cards would work to buy food for Shabbos. I was too embarrassed at the time to go to Stockers to help. I should have. I was too embarrassed to do that. I used to regularly run out of petrol. I mean, there were just long periods of time where it was trying to figure out what I was doing. I was starting the new businesses. I was moving from one business to another business. I also forgot to mention, which is quite important as well, in between, I did have a cousin of mine that gave me an opportunity, and I did have free time while, especially before the manufacturing businesses, and when it was starting, he had an estate agent and he offered me a job there. That's when things started to improve a lot. But before that, when I was figuring everything out, it was really, really tough times. There was a lot of low points. I remember the time davening that the current business I was in should just work out already and things should take off. And I've learned from that we have no idea what Hashem's plans are. I wouldn't be where I am if not for my whole story. Oh. So how I've entered from one business led to another business, led to me being next door to this technology, company, and then the introduction and then it is a very, very clear path.
Yeah, but when you're in that moment, do you see a light at the end of the tunnel, or you just don't know what tomorrow is going to bring you?
It's pure misery. It literally is extremely hard time. It was very, very tough.
And you're trying to do all the right things. You're trying to start a business. You're trying to support your family independently. You're not trying to lean on other people for support.
Correct. And I worked very, very hard. Right. I remember getting up at 8 a.m. and sometimes going to bed at 4 a.m. It was
doing what you was expected of you in that situation, but you're just not getting the results.
Yeah. There were a lot of low points.
What did you lean on then? Or who did you lean on then?
Credit card debt. I don't know what else to say, but it was
because you pulled through and you were driven to get
no
to get past it.
No one knew anything. Yeah, I was always driven to get past it. It was very, very tough. I don't know how I got through it, but I did. At some points when I was driving, I ran out of petrol, and I remember singing an article. Chaverim came along, and I now had £5 worth of petrol, and I could carry on going for a day or two until I ran out again.
What would you advise somebody else now that you've been through that and past that experience? Looking back, you can say, those are the pieces of the puzzle. But to somebody who might be going through that now, who might be listening to this,
I don't really have answers to that. I mean, it's the most embarrassing thing and the most difficult thing to ask people for help. But there are people that are willing to help, and they do in such a nice way. And if you can overcome that difficulty and just say to people, I'm going through a really tough time, can you help me even a little bit? Had I done that for more people, everything would have been a lot easier. At the same time, I don't judge, because it is so hard to ask people for help. Yeah. Even close family members, it is so difficult.
Wow, fascinating. I appreciate you sharing that, because I think when people hear it from somebody else, it just gives that bit of a...
I find that it's also easier to ask for help when you know you can pay back. If you know that you're short and you need £1,000, but you know you're going to have it back in a month, it's much easier. It's when you have no idea what you can give, when you can give, and how you can give. It is so, so difficult. During those times, things are happening where you have to give money towards, whether it's, a family getting together and you're clubbing for a nephew's bar mitzvah, and everyone's giving that amount. You don't want to be the one say that we can't. Or it comes to the kids, you're having a holiday and it's summer and everyone's going away, and anything. Times where you just have to, there's certain things that you just have to do. You have to, birthdays, you buy gifts, and there's times when it's really...
Life doesn't stop.
Life doesn't stop. No.
Growing up, you were surrounded by charity. You witnessed your father supporting charity. What did you see?
So growing up, my father, who was a lawyer, gave a lot towards charity. He gave a lot of money to charity. There were a lot of good times, and he gave a lot of money to charity. But he also gave a lot of time to charity, and I saw that time in and time again. There were constantly parlor meetings in the house. I should know these terms. Parlor meetings in our house. There were lots of meetings the whole time. He was trustees of various charities, and he was always very involved with different charitable work.
Did that kind of shape your position once you were past your own experiences?
I think so. I really would, besides this being a business, what it is, I really go what I feel above and beyond to help as much as possible. We also do an enormous amount where we actually don't charge anything. I just don't publicize what we do charge and what we don't charge on. I just don't need other people to start making cheshbonos. But at the same time, there is an incredible amount of money being raised the whole time that we don't charge on at all. We decide just to do as a chesed, just to give back. For example, this past month alone, over £1 million has been raised on the website that we have not charged a single penny for. And this is constantly month in and month out.
You've built a powerhouse that can support charities and alongside the business venture.
That's right, yes. And the point was, at the time when I came in as well, the foreign companies, they weren't very good at what they do. They were charging between 10 and 12%. They were charging enormous fees. When I came in, it was never like, okay, what's the most that I can charge to make that effect? Like, can I get away with 7, 8%? And then, that's already a good saving. It was at the time, how much do I need to charge to cover my costs? At the time, as a design project, to make it a little bit, obviously it has grown and things have changed. But the pricing has always stayed what I feel like is a very low and fair structure, and has never gone up.
Fascinating. I want to understand what gave you the ability, besides seeing the potential in the local industry, and you said it started off as a bit of a side hustle, but to see how far-reaching you can take this globally. Like, how did you approach expanding your business internationally across Europe, Israel, USA, breaking into those new markets and being confident to take them on? A lot of people start businesses and they just don't see past their square neighborhood. Like, what gave you the ability to say, this is something we're building, we're going to lay those foundations, and then we're good to go globally?
It's my personality. The type of person I am. Whatever I do, I want it to be big. I want it to be the best. I want it to be the number one. And with everything that I've done, I've always aimed for that, and I've always had that push and the need, in a way, to make it bigger and better, and to go and to push boundaries as much as possible. With saying that, though, I have had huge dishyata d'shmaya. I mean, in a way, COVID that destroyed so many people, for me was a blessing. It literally took it from doing 2 or 3 a month to doing 10 plus a week. And then the natural thing was, okay, what is next? And okay, there's other countries, there's Europe, and then Israel, and then there's America, and then there's charity pages, and then there's a whole new concept that we've just launched a few months ago, where it's an online fundraising platform that people can use all year round to launch mini campaigns. There's always constantly what's next, and how can we grow, and how can we improve as well.
That's really fascinating. I think with an industry like this, and especially at a moment in a time when you broke into that space, it was, like you said, it was a global economic downtime. People just think, okay, he struck lucky. That moment was ripe, and that was the right time to come into the market with such a product. But I don't think it's true, because there's a lot of people who are working in tech, whether it's fintech, prop tech, and they're not exactly making it, and they're struggling to get their product off the ground. With Charity Extra, you've managed to really intertwine it into the fabric of society. Like you're saying, there's products where schools or schools or other charities can have online campaigns going the whole time, a free service that you offer. Like, how much potential did you realize before you got started, that how far this can go in terms of how much the society and the communities can start to rely on this as an essential part of fundraising?
Yeah, so honestly, I had no idea. I'm being very honest. I honestly thought it'll be 2 or 3 a month and it'll be a good side project. I didn't think it would go anything above and beyond where it is now. No one knew. But going back what you said about other people that have tried, it's not about getting lucky. There is sometimes, like I said, there was the path. I had to there's a very, very clear path. When you're on your journey and you're going through difficult times, you have no idea why you're going through, and it is really, really difficult, and you have no idea what's next. The most important thing that I've learned and I've seen is, again, it's startless. You've got to do something. Came back to, I'm going to go into work. I have to do something. That led to the next thing, which led to the next thing, which led to the next thing. Had I not done anything, right, I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't have met the people involved. And it was just very important to understand that, things don't always work out, and to be where I am. Also, it's pretty much all the same thing.
Right.
It was constantly working, constantly pushing, constantly trying. And then, yes, there have been many other platforms that have come along in the past few years, tried to compete and undercut, and haven't managed a bit and then stopped.
You've been on that journey yourself. You understand that process now in hindsight. It's
Correct. And people that have tried exactly the same thing. I always say there's 2 people that can do the same job, really put the same amount of effort in it, and one makes it and one doesn't make it. There's no explanation to it, right, besides obviously we can see clearly that Hashem's in charge, and we just do what we can do.
Like you mentioned, the volume of charities is very high, and I think as a community we're becoming very well educated what to expect. The first campaign, perhaps you make a donation, give, you're not expecting an email back, you're not expecting a notification. Through the volume of charities, we've got into a bit of a rhythm with what happens next, the different prompts, the different results, the different reactions. How are charities facing up to this? When they're launching a campaign, they know they're going to be asking people who have been asked an hour ago, 2 hours ago. We're constantly tapping into that pool. How are they fighting off this challenge, I would say, to stay different, stay fresh, and to really keep their donor base engaged and happy to keep donating to them?
Yeah, so the question really is I mean, in a nutshell, when I have this is the first question about many charities come, how are some successful and how are some not successful? Or how do we make ours a success? And this really doesn't make a difference if the campaign, if there was no campaign, let's say there's no campaign for 3 months, and then there's a campaign, it could be a failure. And sometimes it could be 30 campaigns a week, and then they're all successful. What is it that makes campaigns tell the charities that the real effort that they've got to put in is not the marketing, and it's not the look of the campaign and the slogans. And these things, obviously, they are important, but they play a smaller part in what's needed. What's actually needed is that people who have agreed to fundraise, they need to feel valued. At the beginning, this wasn't so important because it was new, it was fresh, it was exciting. And people were happy to do this and sort of figure it out, like you said. But now that everyone knows everything, the charities have to go above and beyond to make sure that the people that have agreed to fundraise for them are feeling valued. Make phone calls to them, thank them for what they're doing, send something small in advance to them, get everyone together for a pre-event. These things have been done and have been done time and time again. But there's no harm in keep on doing that. Keep on investing in the people that you want to fundraise for you. The more you invest in them, the more effort that they would make to go above and beyond, and the more effort that the person who's fundraising is making on the day of the campaign. I mean, this is clear. They make more money. If I send a broadcast to 200 people, I won't get any donation. If I spend half an hour, select 20 people, send a voice note, send a link, explain to them this means so much to me. I know there's lots of campaigns. Anything they can give would be appreciative. That person will make money every single time.
Right. So there's two things there. There was the ambassadors or the page takers for the charities, and then there's the end user, the people who are being requested from.
But it's the same thing, though. The people that are funding, the ambassadors, whatever we call them, champions, people that have their link and share it out, how do we get them to make that effort so that the donor feels like they need to give? It is all on those people. The charities have to invest in those people. What I do wish, which none of the home charities do, is that they disappear for a year and then they wake up and expect everything. It would be great if, they would have, whether it's a monthly newsletter or if they look after people throughout the year, it would be very helpful. But it's just not going to happen because they don't have enough volunteers or staff or people dedicated to do this.
Looking for finance solutions that actually deliver? Introducing the UK Finance Group. Led by multi-award-winning finance specialist Maxim Cohen, the UK Finance Group delivers cutting-edge finance accessibility to the funding you need fast. Residential mortgages, bridging finance, commercial mortgages, business finance. Whatever your goal, the UK Finance Group is here to make it happen with advice you can trust and solutions that work. And it's not just one service. With the UK lender, the UK property agent and the UK accountant all under one roof, the UK Finance Group is your complete financial powerhouse, and they are ready to serve you. One group, endless possibilities. That's the UK Finance Group. Backed by experience, built for results. The UK Finance Group. Reach out to Maxim Cohen today. So that's the question. It's funny you mentioned that now. I had a standing order set up for a charity. It was a nominal amount, but it was going out weekly from my charity account to this charity. And after about 12 months, I hadn't heard peep from them. So I just thought, not that the money's not going to a good cause. It probably was, but when you just don't hear back from people, you just kind of think you're talking to a wall. So I cancelled it and I thought I'll just send the money somewhere else. I wasn't upset, but I just thought I got like an automated email saying, we've noticed your standing orders been stopped. This is how you can reinstate it. Thank you very much. And I just thought, why? Had there been a touch point somewhere throughout those 12 months, preemptive message, something, this is how the money's being used, just to keep the donor base engaged would make a whole lot of difference.
Yeah, massive difference. And I've actually tried about a year ago. We got a team together and I tried to help charities doing this, but there was no engagement from them. This is the difference, though. This is completely off point a little bit, but the different mindsets in different countries, that once you break out and you see different things, here in the UK especially, charities don't want to employ a fundraiser, or they do want to employ a fundraiser, but no one really wants to be a fundraiser simply because our mindset is, how much money is this fundraiser going to take, and people are going to say, why should I give you a donation? It's going towards wages, going towards fees. That's a whole separate subject that we can discuss soon if you want, which is, none of it makes sense at all once you actually think about it. In America, though, every charity has an executive director, somebody that's employed, and on a proper wage, maybe a small commission as well, I don't know. But ultimately, that's their job. Their job is just to make sure that when it comes to the fundraising element, when it comes to the money coming in and coming out, that people are looked after. There is a plan, a yearly plan, when we're going to do our campaign, what we're going to do in between the campaigns, what we're going to do to our major donors, what we're going to do to our middle tier donors, and what we're going to do to the standing orders, and what are we going to do for all the people that have agreed to fundraise for us in the previous year to keep them engaged.
Wow.
And we don't do that.
They've captured that full journey, and there's something to be done for every part of it.
That's right. And it's a
So
where
are we struggling? What are people here locally afraid of? Afraid to spend? That they're not going to see a return on that investment, or they just don't feel it's right to channel charity funds towards an expense? Like, what is the perspective here?
I think, again, I'm not saying this for certain, it depends on how we value time. In America, they generally value time a lot. So people understand that the difference between how people work in America and the UK is substantially different. Even London, which has a higher workload compared to the rest of the country, when it comes to America, things are taken on a completely different level. So generally, people, when it comes to a charity wants to fundraise, people can't volunteer. They can't find anyone that says, you know what, I'll be on your board, I'll be on a committee, and therefore I'll help. There is no such thing. People don't have that time. They're not willing to give away that time, or they just don't have the time because everything is such a rat race. So they all understand that we employ someone and it's okay to employ someone to do. But here in the UK, which a lot of people do have more time, charities can build a committee, and with a committee, we expect those committee people to do things for free. When people are doing things for free in their spare time, it's going to be the second most important thing that they need to do. If it's the second most important thing they need to do, then all these things aren't that important. We have enough money for the next year. We'll do a campaign the year later. Yeah, we'll struggle a bit. We might make it a little bit less. We'll call out one or two people and ask them to increase their donation a little bit more. And it's done like that, which is, to me, is a shame.
It's fascinating you mentioned. I do a lot of work with charities, and I've seen how many times charities have dates in the diary, and I call them 3-4 weeks before, like, where we're holding, video, graphics, like, what's the plan? And they'll be like, sorry, we just couldn't get this stuff together. We've postponed it. And I've seen this happen so many times. And the same thing very often happens on round 2, because these are people running businesses and they just haven't got the headspace to sit down and come to meetings and actually get the ball in motion. And it's literally what you're saying, that if they're not going to be paid, if it isn't somebody responsible and being paid to fill that role and get the stuff done, then it just becomes a struggle and a burden for everyone. Yeah.
And if somebody is paid and does a good job, it'll be transformative, but it's just not going to happen with the sort of attitude that we have towards. We also have an attitude to charities as well, that, I want my money to only go and not to be used on
It's literally my next question, because you were saying from the charity's perspective not to want to pay somebody. I was wondering, what from the community, how would they perceive if there's like a CEO or somebody who's being paid a solid salary? And go on and tell me what's the perception from the community looking out at that charity?
So the way the community looks at it, if someone's being paid from charity, and someone's looking successful that's working in a particular charity, there's a lot of negativity. There is a lot of, and then people don't want to give, my money's going towards him, or I don't want my money to go towards that. The truth is, it's complete mad. There is nothing worse, and I've worked with thousands of charities. There is nothing worse working with a charity that comes to me and says, we are a zero overhead charity. All the money goes directly to the cause. Now, there is nothing worse than that, because there's going to be a huge amount of probably wastage. There's a huge amount of opportunities that are being missed. Charities need to work in a way like a business, but there obviously needs to be more safeguards in place. But to have a charity come along and saying we're a zero overhead charity, it's very nice if you're 20 grand a year charity, if you're 30 grand a year charity, and if it's something that you've launched on your own. But if you've grown, you need somebody on the top. And that person should be paid because they're giving their time. You don't want it to be their second option. You want it to be their first option. This is what they're doing. This is what I'm going to grow. This is what I'm doing. And that person deserves to be paid for their time, number one. Number two, there should be bookkeepers involved and people involved to make sure the money is going to the right place and being spent well. There should be a secretary, a phone line. There needs to be infrastructure. With infrastructure, you can grow and you can be healthy. reporting, and you can identify leads, and there's so much more that you can do. Also, besides for the fundraising element, for actually whatever you're doing, whether it's a food charity or a school or anything, if you have a proper structure, you'll be run more efficiently. And people need to be paid to run that, which some people seem to think. Obviously, there needs to be safeguards in place.
You're saying there's opportunities that can be lost or wasted, or things where there's just no oversight.
Absolutely.
Because nobody's being paid or nobody's responsible. There's
Absolutely.
just no responsibility.
That doesn't mean to say, though, that if a charity makes £1 million a year, that the director should be on 900 grand a year. Right. Obviously, there is a balance when it comes to a business where if somebody makes £1 million a year profit, they can theoretically take as much as they want. There are going to be more safeguards in place when it comes to a charity. But we have those safeguards anyway, because with the Charity Commission, anyone making £60,000 or more, it shows on the Charity Commission's website. So they are there, where in a business you have no idea who's taking what.
Right.
We have those safeguards in place here in the UK anyway.
Right, fascinating. You touched on this a bit earlier, but I want to go back into it in terms of how people are going about the fundraising. Like you said, just putting on their status or just sending out broadcasts without personalizing messages. People find this frustrating. No issues with being asked, but why not take an extra second, an extra moment to ask? What more can charities be doing for their champions, for their ambassadors, to help educate them how to go about their fundraising journey?
So, as I said, the most important thing is for them to feel valued. That is the most important. Number one, don't just get somebody, a secretary who doesn't even know the guy's name, to do this. Don't just assume that everyone's going to do this for you and say, some charities come to us and go, we're a school, 200 parents, here's everyone's page, here's the whole list of the school, off they go. Right. That's not going to work. Somebody important needs to spend time, call up these people, tell them, it means a lot to you. You're gaining from us. You're a service user. You send your child here. This is a yeshiva. Maybe a neighbor of yours, maybe someone in your shul uses our services. And, can you be part of it? To have that initial conversation is so important. Once they've agreed to do that, there is the journey. There is a journey then to follow up before the campaign starts. But send you the link, spend some time, send a voice note, create a personal message, send an email. That is like the bare minimum. Right. And then we have different levels up, the more charities can do. The next level up as a minimum is send something in for Shabbos before the campaign. Again, we're not talking about spending money. We're talking about showing appreciation, getting buy-in from people.
And once they've bought in, then the way they're going to go about the fundraising will hopefully be a lot more passionate, a lot more in touch with the people they're raising funds from. Right?
That's right. I mean, I've seen this in tipping. A lot of people, they tip in a restaurant or when they go in after the meal. I have seen people doing this, and it's clever. They tip beforehand, and then they get treated very, very differently for the whole thing. Yeah. And then they don't tip afterwards. They're tipping beforehand. They're thinking, how much is it going to cost for 10 people? It's going to cost £200, and they're going to give their waiter £20 before they start the meal. Everything's transformed. They
set the tone, basically.
Yes. In a way, you want to do something like that. Do something in advance. Show appreciation in advance so you know that's going out. And then there's another level up where you would do a pre-event, whether you get somebody, a singer, to come, or it always also depends how much you're looking to raise. It's got to be cost effective. Sure. If you're raising £100,000, you can't spend £20,000 on all of this. It just doesn't make sense. So it's all got to be in relation with how you're spending. And then at the same time, your advertising campaign, your marketing does make a difference. Your marketing, though, which is really important, is not for the donors, so to speak. It's for your people that are fundraising to feel backed up by you. I've never ever seen somebody seeing an advert and go, I need to give this campaign. Just never happened. The point of it is, it's that the people, when the crowdfunding happens, when the campaign happens, people feel like something's going on. I'm being backed up. I'm doing this together with the school or with whatever this is, with the charity to back me up, and we're in this together. And that is crucial to every single campaign.
It's fascinating, really fascinating. I mean, it's incredible to see how many charities we have and how they exist across different communities. And they really seems like whenever there's an issue, there's a charity that crops up to plug that gap. From your perspective, seeing it from this bird's eye view, is that how you would expect it to be? That we've kind of, as communities, we're left to fend for ourselves and build solutions to everything? Or should there be more external, perhaps governmental support to take care of some of the issues that you see fundraisers or charities being launched? Where could we be outsourcing some of that and using up the other resources for more internal issues?
Quite a heavy question. So again, this is me personally.
Sure.
What I think the most beautiful thing about our community is that when a person suffers and then gets out of the suffering, many times they think of, what can I do to change that so people shouldn't have to go through it? So many countless charities have been started from people that have really suffered and have had no help and haven't been through it. And all these people, they are such an inspiration to see how much that they've suffered. And then what do they go and do? They go and set up a charity so that other people shouldn't have to suffer the same thing that they have done. Wow. And this is anywhere from food infertility to cancer to children's illnesses to poverty to there is so much that have done and people have started and people have changed just because of they said, you know what, I've suffered, but I don't want someone else to suffer immense pain and difficulties and mess that I was in. I'm going to launch a charity to help. Obviously, charities, like businesses, do not just appear how they appear now. They appear very, very small. They help one person, then they help two people, then they help four. And then once you get to that point where they can't manage on their own, they then invest in a secretary and another person to come on board, and then they get premises. It has to be done in the right way. You can't just, like I said, then you get a very negative look when you're suddenly spending lots of money. It's got to be done in the right way. But that's the most beautiful thing, and it's the right way, and that's how it should be. When it comes to governmental help, working with countries all over the world, in the UK, we are quite fortunate, believe it or not, with what we get from governmental help. The gift aid, most countries do not have such a scheme.
Right.
Okay, so you're literally getting your tax back on what you've given, and if you actually you can give no tax at all if you've given that amount of charity. Businesses can give charity, and that's that's an expense. It's not just taken off afterwards. These are good points. There are lots of grants that you can get as well, and I believe that we do live in a place that is pretty kind and pretty good to charities. And once we sort of break out like food and like what should government be doing when it comes to like food banks and giving schools more? The answer is, of course they should. They shouldn't be these things at all. But there are, and it is what it is.
Fascinating. Really interesting. What happens when charity A launches to fill a void and is then faced by competition? Charity B, perhaps in the same community, trying to attract the same user base, servicing the same families, and now also vying for the same pool of funds. In a business, we call it competition and, let the best man win. But I'm curious to know how this plays out in the world of charity.
So a quite interesting question. So actually, just before Pesach, somebody reached out to me who I don't really know. And he said that he does a Kimcha de Pesach every single year. And he says this year, he's really, really suffered for the first time. He's gone around to lots of people and he hasn't managed to raise as much as he needs to raise. What do I think on the matter? So this is not even a step further. You said about the same charity to another charity. This is just any charity to any charity. Right. There is a pool of money. There is going to be a limited amount of money. How can one's going to affect another one? Every time something new comes along or someone gets a bit bigger, a bit stronger, it can detract from something else. My initial thoughts were, you're coming to me with a complaint, because it was a complaint, because you weren't good at fundraising. So you're not good at fundraising. You haven't managed to fundraise as much as someone else has fundraised. So therefore, you've come to complain to me. Obviously, I did not write that back to this person, but ultimately, what I wrote was that just like that charity has increased and has managed to make money, there is opportunity there. It's not like that charity has gone and taken away money that was coming to you and taking to them. They've obviously sold themselves better. They've done a good job at it. So you now need to do the same thing as well, and you can get it as well.
They've proved to you that it can be done, so now you need to go out and do it.
That's right. That's number one. Number two is, again, I said, as a frum person, we also believe that whatever is, no one can take away from anyone, which is actually a really, really, really hard concept to get around. It sounds so simple. If it's destined for you, it's yours, and
until it happens to me, or you.
But when it happens and you have a client and someone takes away that client, it's something like it hurts.
Yeah, sure.
And I said, no, I understand that, but ultimately, the money is there. You need to maybe start earlier. You have to change. You have to update yourself, and there are times where it's going to be easy and there are times when it's difficult. And that's across the board, though. But there are times when 2-3 months, campaigns all suffering and everyone's down 10-20%. And then 6 months later, for absolutely no reason, charities are smiling away with this year we've made significantly more than we've ever done before. And there'll be a whole month worth and all of them saying that. Yeah. So it's just the way the swing.
Incredible. But the concept of charities feeling competitive about other charities, trying to putting the funds aside for a moment, just in terms of being the service provider for a specific cause. Are there sentiments like that between charities?
Of course they are, because there's the personal element to it. There's that person that started off that's felt that he can help, and now maybe he feels like he's being undermined, and someone else is, taking their limelight, and that's what I was here first, and this is my turf, and this is what I'm doing, and you're doing the same thing by making more of a noise.
Right.
But it's just
Part of the game.
Yeah, we're not a small killer. There's not 200 families, and everyone has one bakery and one butcher. And
I want to tap into the Charity Extra user experience. I think you've really managed to crunch down this process of making a donation, like booking an Uber. Like, it's literally a couple of taps, and it's intuitive, it's clean, it's simple. Walk me through the process of developing the tech. Obviously, it wasn't done by yourself, but you partnered with a team that did it. More importantly, I want to understand how you refined it to that point where it's just a seamless process to get that job done.
We had a bit of a head start. We didn't come up with a concept. Okay, always bring up other examples. Elon Musk with Tesla was not the first electric car.
Right.
The electric car was out there, and someone came along, saw an opportunity, and saw people doing it, but not doing it well, and thought, I can do it better. Which in a way is a lot easier than coming along and with a groundbreaking a new product and getting it right. Hoover had it, and others no Hoover anymore. It's Dyson's taken over. Well, but they've just done it, and they've done it in a better, more efficient way. So crowdfunding wasn't new. It's been around for years already. But I saw an opportunity. I saw a very clunky, old-looking piece of software. And actually, the funny thing is, I'm being told that now by a few people that we're so used to something a bit old. How can we? Quite. Time for a refresh maybe. And again, working on all these things to give the charities the option. Ultimately, when it comes to the psychology behind fundraising, and this is important, this is why I got thrown in the deep end straight away, we have to remember why people are giving. People are giving for one reason. They don't care so much about the charity. People do, obviously, but not that particular charity. Why are they giving? They're giving because of the person who's asked them. Yeah. And that comes back about why it's so important to invest in the people that are fundraising for you, because people are giving to them. That is the most important concept. People are giving because they're asked by someone else, and they are generally happy to support that person. They can't say no, whatever the reason may be. That's why people are giving. So to understand that, you understand that people aren't giving to the charity, they're giving to the person who's asking them. So the most important thing is to make that journey for the donor as easy and as simple as possible, because if the charity was fundraising on its own, they would want to get as much information as possible, and that person's coming to give us, they're connecting to us as a charity, and therefore let's try and get as many details as possible so we can sign them up for something else. That doesn't happen here, right? Person is giving because the person who's asked. Charity is the second thing. The first person is the thing. So we have to make that experience for the donor. Does not want the charity necessarily to contact them. They're not giving to the charity because they particularly like that charity, and therefore, hey, give me a call in a week. You have all my information. Send me up for a direct debit every single month. That's not the user experience, and that's not the user journey here. The user journey here is I'm giving because someone else has asked me to. Don't care so much about the charity. Give a donation. Want it to be easy. Don't want it to be cluttered. Want it to be simple. Want it to be fast. Want it to be clean. That's what we concentrated on. We sort of stole the idea from Amazon when we have a one-click checkout. And again, we're not trying to cheat people, but there's this concept called lost checkout. And this happens across online retail, where people enter their details, get distracted, get fed up it's taking so long, and then disappear. We have that in the charity world a lot. And to try and eradicate that, Amazon managed to eradicate that by having a one-click checkout. See the product, buy it now, and then boom, boom, boom. It's there the same day or the next day. And again, try to do the same concept. Someone gets a link, they're given because of the person. So therefore, we need to make that as easy and as simple as possible. And that is what I'm concentrated on when building it, and with all the updates and with all the extra shticks that everyone keeps asking for and all the extra changes that we do. The concept of why it looks generally the same and the way it looks is because that experience has to be very, very easy and very, very fast. Now, on desktop, the site doesn't look who knows what, because we concentrate on mobile. At the end of the day, 95% of traffic is mobile.
Oh, you can see that.
Yeah. It is, and that is where we concentrate more the looks and the effortlessness.
Well, yeah, you've done a remarkable job with that. What are the challenges of maintaining and developing a tech business? Because you've made it all sound far too easy.
Yeah. One has to understand as well that theoretically anyone can open up a technology business. In a way, what do you actually own? If you have a property business, you own a property and you get the rent. Obviously there's other expenses involved there as well. But once it's there, it's there. Yeah. With technology, you don't really have an asset. You don't. So the challenge has always been is to try and be the number one. to try and make sure that everything is, first of all, always fast, always easy, features that other people aren't keeping up with. We were the first ones with like team replies where we have an interaction directly with the person who's asking and giving up both on the website. That was a long time ago. Lately, we've introduced team dashboards where people can see how many donations they are and like how where raised £2,000, your position 4, £24 to position 3. And then recently we added onto that dashboard where you can see if you're coming again, where you can see people who've previously given to you and how much they've given to you. And then we've launched a whole phone system, we've launched a text system, and that all integrates together, and we can do raffles now. And it's always about trying to be on top and keep it that way.
So you're recognizing that you're in a race for the long term and it's a matter of winning it rather than owning it.
Correct. There's nothing to own, so to speak, when it comes to technology.
Why would a charity not use Charity Extra for a fundraiser? How do they see the difference of the different options? There's GoFundMe, there's Just Giving, then there's Charity Extra. What's screaming to them differently? And then where would their objections lie?
So I always tell charities, I've never done this before, this is not one size fits all. Okay, this is it and there's nothing else. Charities that don't suit this model, and there are other fundraising models as well, which is really important. I actually encourage charities to do some sort of gala events, to do events to, every so often. Don't just to rely on this. A lot don't listen, but that's a separate thing. It is a good thing to have engagement. These campaigns, though, ultimately work if you have a community. If you have people that are willing to do this. There are a lot of charities that don't have, or they just can't get enough people to go ahead and do this. There is costs involved to a campaign. Even on a basic level, it is going to cost, with the graphics and with all the fees involved, it is going to cost a few £1,000s. And if you're trying to just raise £10,000-20,000, it's not cost effective. Open your dining room and invite 20 people to come around and put an advert on the show. There is still a need for that, and that is. But if you don't have a crowd to do this, then this doesn't work. But going upon what you said there as well, there's other, platforms like Just Giving and GoFundMe, and there's international platforms. Like I said, we've tried to keep on top of our game. We're trying to offer as many features as possible. Our service is really, really good. Great team. And everyone that does campaigns know that our response time is really fast. Usually within 2 minutes is the average response time.
I've experienced that. It's incredible. It's really incredible. Yeah.
It's the before, it's during, it's the afterwards, and it's about having that whole package.
At this point, how invested are you when a charity goes live? Like, take me through the back-end experience of operating such a business.
I believe a lot in delegation. If I need to go away for a week, something comes up, everything carries on, which was very important for me to build like that, because besides for the continuing of the business, like I said, there's always, in my mind, other opportunities. There's a big conference in America that I'm going to go to next week. I spent a lot of time and effort building up the Israeli team. I've got a whole office there. I've got an office in America. That takes time and effort. And if this business is running and is growing, and I can concentrate on things that opportunities, that gives me the ability to do it. There's also lots of other products that I want to concentrate on and I want to launch and I want to develop and I want to get the team to do. And that requires a lot of attention as well during a campaign. So I actually have an app. And the app gives me all the details live of all the campaigns that are live.
Amazing.
Without that, I couldn't manage. So if I just
going on.
click on it, I see everything live. I can see when the last time they got a donation, how much they've raised, how much they've got with matching, how much they made in 24 hours, and I have a summary of everything.
And that's on the go. That's always on the go.
It's always on the go, and especially during the period of time. I am actually regularly, looking on it, seeing what's going on, and sometimes engaging. I do reach out, like, you're a bit slow, or you're way ahead of where you need to be. Have you thought about your bonus round? But my team are doing that as well.
Right, but you still want to keep your finger on the pulse with it and staying in touch with your charities. That's really fascinating. There's so many charities we can discuss, and I don't think discussing 3 or 4 is going to do justice to the overall operation of Charity Extra. The overall stats are staggering, but I wanted to highlight one charity that I think performed remarkably well, both in terms of what they raised, but also how they marketed themselves, and that's Camp Simcha. They started off with a target of 2.4 million, hit a bonus goal of 2.8, and then they reached 3+. What can you tell me about the Camp Simcha campaign that other charities can learn from?
This came straight away. An emotional charity is a lot easier to raise funds than a non-emotional charity. So there could be the same amount, 2 people doing the same thing, but one's emotional, one's not emotional. It's very hard to give pointers. They did this right, therefore everyone else can do this. However, there's lots of things that they do right which a lot of the stuff that I have touched upon before, they had a team that really looked after the people fundraising. I mean, they really put an effort in. There were lots of personal phone calls being made. There were gifts being sent. There was follow-ups. There was Zoom events where we invite people to come and join them, come and talk. There was a massive marketing campaign during the time of the campaign where they got stickers put everywhere and they're giving out sweets and there was adverts everywhere. And everyone sort of felt bought in, and they created this environment of something exciting is happening,
Right.
something as big is happening. We are coming, we are here, you're making a difference.
That's what I wanted to tap into, because I felt it. Even though their branding was very much their regular branding from all year round, their video, the style, it was all very on brand. They didn't come out of the box with anything outrageous, but they managed to build this support network around them.
What people don't see is an average campaign starts like that 6 months before the campaign starts. Regular meetings going on. They have a team of 20 people plus who are working, both volunteers and paid for staff, and even the trustees, the people at the top, putting in enormous amount of koiches and effort. And again, this is a big warning sign. Whenever I do a campaign and the people on the top and the trustees, no, I'm not getting involved. And I always say, you're going to fail with that attitude. Why would people further down the line, even if it has a massive effect? And, in a campaign like Camp Simcha, people from the top all the way down, from the volunteers and the teenagers, they were all involved and they're all bought in and they're all making an effort. And when everyone comes together and makes an effort as one collectively, you have a success.
Phenomenal, really phenomenal. Yitzi, it's been amazing speaking to you. What's the journey ahead looking like for you at Charity Extra? From a product perspective, from a commercial perspective, where can we expect to see you guys next?
So I'm really, really looking forward to hitting the 1 billion raise mark. Almost there, I think. The last time I checked, between 700 and 800 million.
Amazing.
So
when's that coming out? When's that anticipated?
I'm hoping the beginning of 2026.
Wow.
That's what I'm hoping for. To me, that will be a major milestone, and I'm looking forward to that. On a product development point of view, so like I said, I've just launched, we're calling it Charity Extra Hubs. Right. This is a place we're offering this free of charge, where every charity has an all year round Charity Extra page. This is not a charity page. This is a fundraising page where people can come along, find their charity and say, I want to fundraise for them. And they get an immediate link. They can set a target, set an image. And that's been a big, big push that I've been working on. I've signed up about 15 charities, and then they're doing significant sums. There's 100 to 200,000 pounds a week just through these 10, 15 charities with small fundraisers. It could be an anniversary, a bar mitzvah, where a boy comes along and says, you know what, instead of taking a bar mitzvah gift, I'm going to take a page, let's say for Camp Simcha, and then say, here's my link, and instead of presents, give this. And people are doing this the whole time. It is wonderful to see.
Reimagining the entire charity opportunity. It's
correct. Yeah. And that is a big push of mine. Instead of just the one-off campaigns, every charity has an opportunity throughout the year, no matter whether you're a school, a yeshiva, or a Camp Simcha, or a food charity, wherever you are, you have opportunities throughout the year to do lots of mini fundraisers, or connect with people that say, you know what, I want to raise £2,000 for you for whatever. Even a koilel, they're doing a CM. Ask a few people for the CM. You know what, you've done a CM, let's publicize it. Try and raise £1,000. I'm being Messiah in this. Look for do that, and I want to push that very, very lot, that people should start doing that. Again, interestingly, the charities that have an infrastructure, have staff, and have people, and have a director, and have there's someone to engage with, and they build it, and they get it, and they create a timeline. Sure. The ones that don't generally miss this opportunity, or they get excited, that sounds like fun, and they launch it, and then it's dead. Nothing happens. There's no one to drive it forward, which is again, so that's a big product development of mine that I am really pushing for. Always concentrating on new markets, whether it's the wider world of we're doing an Indian charity coming up soon, and all these sorts of charities. It's concentrating on the growth in America that I'm concentrating on, and it's in Israel. It's also they're going to showcase soon on our website. We do raffles, and we do gala event giving, and we do text giving and phone giving, and there's all sorts of products that we do that a lot of people don't even know that we currently do. So there's going to be an update on the website soon. So there is a lot going on.
Exciting stuff. Yitzi, incredible stuff to hear the entire journey, and thank you for sharing obviously your initial journey getting into these things and how everything pieced together for you. And Hashem should give you the energy, strength and wisdom to keep building and keep growing and helping people continue to give.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming.